Fellow Virgin Galactic investors, I want to talk to you today about news that broke just yesterday that a shareholder lawsuit has accused Virgin Galactic founder Tricky Dicky and Chamath the Snake Palihapitiya of insider trading in company shares. The news is probably going to make investors a little bit nervous, and for me, from my perspective, it's just a case of, for God's sake, what now with this bloody business? So let's have a look over the facts, and I'll give you my view on what I think that this could mean for this business into the future. So the stock dropped by 12% yesterday on this news breaking, and it dropped me to a position of being 50% down on this stock. I was once 100% up not too long ago, so thanks, guys. So it transpires that a suit was filed on the 1st of March, and it alleges that several insiders, which include Chamath and Branson, sold stock in this business despite knowing that there was issues with some of the spacecraft. Some of the craft faced durability issues, and they knew at that point that it would result in delays for testing and commercialization of this project, basically. Now, the important bit here is this news had not been publicly disclosed. So they knew that there was going to be issues that would delay testing and delay commercialization and start sending people up there, and the public did not. And it is alleged that they sold shares at this point before the news broke. These issues were then disclosed in October 2021, and this resulted in a number of flights being pushed back. I remember it well, and actually at the time wasn't overly concerned because, as I've mentioned a million times before, sending people up into space is complicated, and there's going to be delays. There's going to be technical issues that need to be overcome. Stuff's going to go back. This is groundbreaking innovation and technology we're looking at here, so it's going to take time. What I didn't know at the time was that these two snakes had already sold out of this business, a number of their shares, and taken profit before this news broke. Allegedly. I have to keep saying that. I'm going to get myself in bother otherwise. Now, as I said, I wasn't too bothered at the time, but had I known that this is what was going on behind the scenes, I think I'd have been pretty pissed off. And in reality, I'm pretty pissed off having found out now if these allegations turn out to be true. At this time, the shares were at around $24 per share. God, I miss them days. And the news of these delays dropped the share price by 17% in one trading session. Of course, our friends Branson and Chamath were already out at that point, so they didn't feel anywhere near as much pain as you and I. It has since plummeted 60% since October, and it is down around the $8-9 per share at the moment. Now, it is important to point out at this point that Branson does still hold 31 million shares in Virgin Galactic. That makes him a 12% owner in this business still, through his Virgin Investment Limited company. So, just so you're aware, when you get super rich, you get to invest through companies, and that means that you're really reducing your exposure because you can do all sorts to write off any risk, to write off any losses, but it also means that you can take full advantage of any gains and reduce your tax exposure and all sorts of ways of making sure that the rich get richer. So maybe one day you and I will be in that position and we're doing our investments through businesses. At the moment, I'm not in that position. Maybe you are. Good for you. So we can't begrudge them. That's just the way the system works. That's how they manage to manipulate the system. And that's something that at the end of the day we probably all strive for at one point. However, it does still leave a sour taste in the mouth given what has been alleged here. Branson did, however, hold 62 million shares going into the beginning of 2021. So that means that he has cut his position in half. So he's cut his position in half, down to 31 million shares. This is the business that he has claimed as his legacy. This is the business that he has claimed as his biggest passion and the one that he wants to be remembered for when he dies. Now, not entirely sure that someone with just a 12% claim in a business is showing those sort of behaviors, if I'm honest. But it is still worth pointing out at this point that he is still very heavily invested into Virgin Galactic. Chamath is still invested into the stock as well. He's got around 3.7 million shares. However, again, he at one point had 10 million shares. So he's cut his position down to a third of what it originally was. But what the two of them have done in the way that they've traded within this business is that they've taken out a lot of profit when the stock was trading at its highest. I think Branson first did that back when he had his successful flight himself into space. He took a lot of profit out then. That was when it was riding around $50 a share. They took out more stock prior to the announcement in October, allegedly, and that has meant that they've covered any costs, and those millions of shares that both of them have still are just free profit from now on. Good for them. Now, the good news is a couple of weeks ago, Chamath has stood down from the board, so he is no longer on the board at Virgin Galactic, so he doesn't hold decision-making powers anymore. As far as I'm concerned, that's the best news we could have had over the course of February with this business. If you can guess, I don't trust him one bit, and perhaps I'm being a little bit emotive about this whole thing, but I'm pissed off about the news. We're allowed to be pissed off about these sort of things, aren't we? Doesn't change the fact that I'm still invested into it for the long term. Now, you know as much as I do that these sort of legal issues, implications, they can go on for months. They can go on for years in reality. And actually, if you Google this, there's only a couple of articles that have even mentioned this. These people have probably got very expensive and very highly qualified legal teams that are going to defend them to the hilt. There may be nothing that ever comes of this, but it is important for you and I to know as shareholders what's going on within this business. For me, it just feels like a bit of a kick in the teeth. As an honest investor, as someone that isn't protected by a business, as someone that hasn't created a SPAC, as someone that has fallen in love with this business and wanted to do well, the romantic side of things, but also the potential commercial gains that this business could have in the future, it just doesn't seem fair, does it? We're retail investors. We always get screwed over the most. So all we can do is arm ourselves with as much knowledge as possible when we're investing into these businesses. And don't forget, I've said it a million times, this is a really super uber duper speculative stock. Could go to nothing, could disappear overnight. If there is one issue with a flight, if there's, heaven forbid, any sort of crash or fatalities, this business is going to disappear in a very short space of time. So it should only be a part of your speculative proportion of your investment. But I still do believe that it is going to be one of the biggest holdings in my portfolio. What does it do for the stock into the future? Well, Christ himself only knows. All I can say is that I reckon, and what do I know, it's gonna plateau again a little bit. It's going to stay around the $7, $8, $9 share mark for the majority of this year. I'm not going to be dripping any more into it. I've got about just under 5%, probably about 3.5% of my total portfolio value is within this business, and that's more than enough for such a risky play. And I am bullish on the business long term, and I am invested, as I've shown you before. And if you want to see the reasons why, watch this video here.